this guy, you have to know how special he is. He is an extraordinary individual, always was, and is.
It's been 50 years since David Millman's classmates graduated from their Montreal primary school. A reunion he's been looking forward to for months. And a day friends, family and physicians thought he wouldn't be here to enjoy.
David was the athlete in the class. He was the center of the basketball team. He was the good, handsome guy, so everybody was very involved and interested in his recovery. And we're very pleased, we're overjoyed to have him here today with us in good health, smiling, happy, and this is definitely a plus for the reunion.
August 2000. David went to bed one night with a very bad headache. He told his wife he didn't feel well and suggested she sleep in another room.
Woke up at 5 in the morning, hearing some terrible rattling sounds from the bedroom. And I called his name, and I didn't get any answer, so I rushed in there. And he was lying on the bed in a coma, but having a seizure. He was shaking and he was rattling. And I went over to him right away, and I put my hands on his chest, and I shook him and I yelled his name. And as soon as I realized that I couldn't get any response, I called 911.
The 62-year-old reconstructive surgeon was rushed downtown to Toronto Western Hospital's Neuroscience Centre. Chief neurosurgeon Fred Gentili made the diagnosis: a massive bleed into David Millman's skull, threatening to shut down his brain functions forever.
He was what we call Glasgow Coma Scale 4. And this is a scale of people in terms of neurological function, and that's about as low as you can get. 3 is the lowest.
He was in a coma. He was totally non-responsive. And I was concerned that was going to be the end.
We live in London, England, so it was about noon our time when I got the phone call from my mother.
David had been rushed into surgery, where neurosurgeons inserted an emergency drain to draw blood from his brain. They told David's anxious family the next 12 hours would be crucial and sent them home to wait.
And then the next morning we woke up and we got a phone call from the neurosurgeon at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he said, I don't like to use the word miracle in my business, but Dr. Millman this morning held up 2 fingers, opened his eyes, and responded to David, and that is a very, very, very good sign.
Good news, but the patient was still too sick to tolerate a more traditional surgical approach. Under the hospital's novel multidisciplinary team approach, neurosurgeon Gentili opted to hand the case over to radiologists, who would try and find and block the bleed non-surgically from inside David's brain.
So this is the segment which has ruptured, and our concern is that this can re-rupture, and that many of these patients, if not treated, can go on to have a second rupture, and they may rupture into the brain and cause some type of permanent stroke.
Dr. Walensky and his team rushed David into the hospital's neuroangio suite. Inside is a high-tech radiation system that would allow them to travel inside the tiny blood vessels of David's brain. Using this state-of-the-art 3D imaging system, doctors threaded a catheter like this one into David Millman's groin artery. They fed the catheter through his body's blood system, through his heart, to exactly where his brain was bleeding. A thin platinum wire was then threaded through the catheter. An electrical charge then coiled the wire and dropped it into position, blocking the leaking vessel forever.
These are the coils here which have been placed into the blood vessel so that the blood vessel is now occluded and the aneurysm occluded, and these coils tightly fit into the blood vessel over that short segment that was abnormal.
The life-threatening bleed had now been blocked, but David's bruised and swollen brain was still unable to regulate its own fluid levels, and any build-up of fluid inside the skull threatened to send David back into a coma. Dr. Gentili decided to surgically implant a brain drain, also called a shunt.
We place a drain within the ventricular system, and connect it to a valve and then tunnel the tubing under the skin to the abdominal cavity.
Welcome home.
After 5 months in hospital, this is David's first visit home. He'd lost almost 60 pounds. He wore an eye patch to ease his double vision and couldn't walk without a walker. He was nauseated and spent most of the big day in bed. In his favour, David had never smoked. He was fit and healthy before the brain bleed, a team doctor to Canada's World Cup downhill ski team.
Dr. Millman, very pleased to meet you again.
Just 9 months after his collapse, David's recovery surprises even the specialists who helped save his life. Visible just under the skin of David's neck, the shunt is draining smoothly. His reflexes are normal, only his balance and his short-term memory remain affected. A remarkably clean bill of health.
Considering, 9 months ago you came in a coma, we weren't sure, we're gonna be able to do very much to the point where you are is, I considered a very excellent, outcome. These things are related to a combination of factors. One, the patient himself, I think, always has an important role to play, the determination and the personality. But I think really the key is the multidisciplinary team approach. And this includes initially, obviously, the role of the emergency physician who first saw him and intubated him, obviously the role of the neurosurgeon, neurosurgical team, I should say, the endovascular team here who did the coiling, and also very important is the ICU care, which is a key element in this patient's care. So I think it's really a combination of all of those factors.
The multidisciplinary approach is being adopted in more and more hospitals today. But ready access to this high-tech $2 million neuroangio suite will take a lot longer.
This is now becoming more popular throughout the world, but there are still very few centers when you think of the entire world that are able to do this type of 3D imaging.
I'm lucky that my wife took me to the hospital immediately, and then I got treatment very quickly after the stroke. And I was also very fortunate to receive the very latest in treatment for a bleeding aneurysm in the skull. And so I'm just a very lucky person.
To your health, to everybody's health.
To everybody's health. Yeah.
Cheers!